Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. JasperMetalGuru here, the ThrashMetalGuru. Like I said, you were going to be seeing me next year in 2017. Here it is, my first recording, and as you can tell, that was my cat Monkey that was on my chair. And as a matter of fact, Monkey, would you like to start off 2017? Great. Say hi, Monkey. That's her name, by the way, Monkey. Say hi, Monkey. She's a cool cat. But anyway, so 2017 has kicked off, and already I'm as sick as a dog, and I can barely speak, and thus my voice has gotten really lower. Anyway, now as you can tell, I'm kind of doing a recording of this for here because there's some things for 2017 that I do want to do. For starters, anyone who's new to my channel, welcome aboard. I'm not going to be making any more Onision videos just until if something really does come to the point where it is fucked up, okay? The only times... I want to actually just explain that a little bit before I get into what I really wanted to get into. To be sincere, from the last two videos that I made that was regarding that certain said fuck-up person individual, I did not intend this video just for the purpose of gaining views, subscribers, or money from that sort of thing. Everyone else decided to call him out on something, and I figured, you know, if everyone else calls him out on something, the more the number of that people, the more of the people that grow to that point of calling him out, I think the better chances would be for him to actually think about what he's doing. And so I figured that would be appropriate. So I did my video as well. Not everyone agrees. That's completely fine. I mean, unlike him, I can actually take criticism and all that other shit and not really worry about what people say to me. Because first of all, it's the internet, nothing's sacred. So other than that, kicking that off aside, I never showed this off, did I? Well, I showed off my other lightsaber before, but this is the Black Series one. It's the Luke Skywalker one. Well, while we're on the subject with lightsabers and all that, actually I wanted to talk about something here. So an example that I actually wanted to bring up, this is... obviously, I'm playing Star Wars, by the way, but this is actually the example that's coming through. So, one of the projects that I've been talking about for a long time on my ThrashMetalGuru channel has been the Star Wars The Old Republic project. And the project actually centers around one of the main characters that I've been talking about for this part, and it's never been fully detailed, but that's why I've been doing recordings of Knights of the Fallen Empire and Knights of the Eternal Throne. Unfortunately, some of these recordings were claimed by Sony Classic and claimed by, I think it was, what do you call that company, GMC or EMC? I don't know. It's an EMC music group, and they actually have a controversial record, which baffles me to even that point. So unfortunately, I'm going to be putting these recordings of stuff like this onto Daily Motion, where I have a better chance of showing, and I'm going to save these onto a hard drive because unfortunately, with certain music playing, which you're not hearing right now, is being copyright claimed, so I have to move around that. But that's not the only thing, but before we get into my next subject, while I'm waiting for this thing to load, I guess it's finally appropriate enough to finally show you the main character that I've been talking about all this time. So as soon as when this thing loads, I can actually show you, but I'm really kind of excited to finally kind of show it. Since I've never really displayed this character before, I've been talking about it so much, I've been giving it a lot of backstory, and I've been thinking about a lot of episodes to write. And anyways, this is actually just the dark side version of him, by the way, which I call him Darth Ryogun. So this is basically, around this character is basically a dark clone version, but I'm not going to get into him just yet because it's not really the most important priority of the project. This character, however, is. This, to me, is who I call J.S. Kenobi. Now, obviously, if you're a big Star Wars fan, hold on 1 second. Alright, Monkey. I know, but I gotta talk to people. Love you, Monkey. Anyways, sorry about that. This is J.S. Kenobi. So now I said before, if you're a big Star Wars fan, you obviously know who Obi-Wan Kenobi is. Now, being that it's the only Kenobi that we've ever seen in the existence of the Star Wars universe, canonically speaking, from Star Wars Episode 1 to Star Wars Episode 6, and referenced in Star Wars Episode 7. There hasn't really been any other Kenobis that I've seen so far. Now, obviously, in Star Wars The Old Republic, this character, J.S. Kenobi, this is about 3,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. However, though, Star Wars The Old Republic is not canon to the timeline of episodes 1 to 6. However, though, this is the project that I considered a fan fiction project, which to me would be considered parallel to that part of time to this sort of thing. Now, why is this important? Well, as you can tell, why, if he's dressed up as a Jedi, why is he an Imperial kind of character? Here's the thing about this character, is that it's going to be connected because it also relates to another character right here. Yes, by the way, this is a Princess Leia Easter egg, by the way. I decided to name her after Princess Leia. This is actually before, you know, the tragic news that I've heard about, and I'm gonna keep this character forever, just as a great reminder and a great tribute, and it's something to me dear to my heart that I will keep. But anyways, where did I put her? Ah, yes. So basically it's basically starting all from this character, so that's basically where it all begins with, but basically this character starts off, he's born on Tython, known as J.S. Kenobi, born from the character as Tria Gallus Kenobi, the first Kenobi to ever, basically in that part of time, because there was other Kenobis before them. But basically his father is a Sith Lord and his mother is a Jedi. Basically, he befriends a few people who would later split up in life, but however, J.S. Kenobi would actually be taken from his home planet by his own father, sold into slavery by the Hutts, beaten, broken a little bit, and then transformed into a Sith. So that kind of begins the Star Wars The Old Republic Sith story, you know, where you start on Korriban, and that's when you play the story where you meet Darth Barris, and then you become, you know, the Emperor's Wrath. Now, further advancing into the story, right after Knights of the Eternal Throne. Now, however, though, it's going to split because I know BioWare is going to have some new stuff coming out, so depending on how they push it out, I'm probably going to be curving around that sort of thing because I don't know exactly what they have planned for it. But anyways, the character itself, he's a light-sided character. He transitions from a Sith Lord, like a Sith Lord to a Darth, but then he starts transitioning during those events of Knights of the Fallen Empire and Knights of the Eternal Throne into a more light-sided character who eventually becomes the Peacekeeper, which any other person in the world playing the world as a character, if you choose light side, Knights of the Eternal Throne, you become the Peacekeeper. That's one of the options, and that's shown all over YouTube, so spoiler alert, I'm sorry. Anyways, so basically that's after the point. Now the character himself now transitions, while being a galactic peacekeeper, transitions more into becoming a Jedi himself, leaving behind the areas of the Sith, convincing his companions, his original companions, with the exception of Malavite Quinn, who I decided to have killed off in the story because I never really liked him to begin with, and something around Jace and Brewmark, which Brewmark, he's another character some of you may know as a companion. He's another character that actually has a good involvement to that story as well. But that character himself is going to go through some certain parts of the stories, and he's going to come across these. And by the way, I forgot to show the father of the character. This is actually him right here, who becomes in the fan fiction sense, the new emperor along with Empress Asina in that fan fiction story. So he's going to be playing one of the biggest roles as a villain. Same with Ryogun, who becomes, to me, is going to be playing a big, major, crucial part of the story later on, as soon as when I get that to fit. But I will display the other characters as well. I will be explaining more of this, possibly in the next fanfiction project video that I'm doing. But for right now, I've actually gotten good recording so far, so as soon as when I get that done, that would be set in stone for that. So now that we've covered Star Wars right there, we're going to move on to something else that I've been working on as well, which I'm on my third story, or my third synopsis of it, so we're going to move on to that. And which, by the way, when I got the wallpaper for Princess Leia for Carrie Fisher, I figured that would be perfect. But by the way, speaking of Carrie Fisher, that does involve itself in my project that I'm also doing as we speak, which is called The Drifter. This is my unique original project that I've done, so if I get a chance, I might be able to release the first and the second story, if I can, via video, or I might be able to read it since Camtasia allows me to actually upload more than 15 minutes. Being that story time, though, if you're patient enough to actually hear me kind of like read the story, then I'll definitely do that. However, though, this story is still under construction because I have only 4 pages in and I haven't done the story in over a year and a half. But Carrie Fisher's inspirement, way before the tragic news that happened, actually was something that I wanted to have her. It's the inspiration. The character itself is supposed to look like her, and she has qualities from her that she's basically called as a character in the story called the Mother of Benevolence. So while I actually put this into my story, I like to actually explain a little bit like this. The Drifter was originally supposed to be more of a horror superhero story, which it was based off the game Outlast, and it was also based off of other kind of types of horror that was supposed to be involved. And ever since then, I kind of lightened the tone a little bit, but not too much. I mean, I didn't want it to really be about, horror, terror, and, ripping, just gore and everything. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's cool stuff if you wanted to show something off for a movie. But I want to kind of lighten the tone a little bit because I wanted to put my own unique features into this and do something a little bit more original and do a little bit more something that kind of put a little bit more tweaks into it. But basically, as some of this is kind of like your same version. It's kind of like Deadpool, but minus the comedy and kind of the goofiness of Deadpool. This is more of like a character who's grown up and he's vengeful. It's kind of like the same routine. Parents being killed by somebody, he ends up finding out who he is, takes vengeance on them. But it's more to it than just that. So I will explain that in the first one. I'll read the first one if I can, and then the second one, and then this. So basically what I'm doing for this one, this is called The Drifter 3, Hell's Resurgence. This is basically a plot where it's going to involve the gang of the Yakuza. It's going to involve a certain character that's been around since the second story, who plays a very crucial role to this as well. And basically, technically a plot device, a tad bit of a plot device for the main character. So I'll have to go back over the cast names and all that other stuff. But I do know for a fact that Carrie Fisher was a big inspiration to why I wanted her in this, because actually she was pretty much in the second story that I already made, but she was more of not really a reference, but she had like a bit of a brief, the Mother of Benevolence character, that is, she had a brief appearance in the second one, and that's where I wanted to transition, where she has more of a big role in the third and the fourth story. And ever since what happened, I think I wanted to do something that would actually kind of connect that bond between the main character and this character. Because the main character pretty much is the aspect of me, just in the opposite sense. That the character, the Drifter himself, is a character who knows how to actually step up to the plate and do shit, and he's pretty much looked up to, as opposed to me. I'm pretty much a nobody. I'm a loser, as opposed to this guy, who has things that he can't. I mean, he pretty much has some of the same qualities as me, but this character has more of an empowerment. And with Carrie Fisher, ever since, I think this would be a greater time to now actually expand that role and help try to bond that role between the two characters, because it helps me feel a little bit more closer to Carrie Fisher in this way. And I figured this would be perfect for that sort of thing. So anyways, once I get this third one done, I think I'm actually going to be doing a series where I'm going to be reading these off. If you guys have the patience for that, then by all means, because I'm also looking for an artist for this stuff too, because I think this would be perfect, and I would be looking so forward to it. And not to mention Christopher Lee, if you guys are a big fan of Star Wars, basically I even got an influence from Christopher Lee for the 6th and 7th story. He would be playing the biggest antagonist of the entire series, because Christopher Lee has been such a badass, not only as an actor but in many places around, and that's why I wanted to involve him in that inspiration of the story. So anyways, this is all the time that I've had. Now that I've covered everything, I do appreciate you guys for actually watching this, taking your time, and kind of just listening to me out a bit. So I'm going to try to get better, because I feel sick as a dog. And just hopefully things get a lot better from here, and we'll just see how it is. Anyways, I am Jazz about the ThrashMetalGuru. You guys have a wonderful 2017. Hopefully it gets better. Catch you guys later.